Hello everyone, welcome to URBONUS podcast. My name is Donatas Urbonas, I'm the host of the show and I'm joined by my colleague Rytis Vyšniauskas. Rytis, welcome to the show.
Hey man, hello everybody. Apologize once again for my hair. I saw your comments, I'm aware of that.
It's not that bad actually.
I'm getting my haircut this week.
I think that people are just exaggerating things.
No,
your haircut,
I think they're really objective about this, and when I get these comments, I know that it's time, but not always I find the time to do the haircut. So you have to suffer for today, but next week I'm gonna be
So it's gonna be the highlight of your week, right? Fresh haircut.
Not really, this week there's a lot of interesting stuff happening, so probably my highlight of the week will be Champions League quarterfinals, but yeah, haircut is also important.
I will give you my highlight of the last weekend, and it was not Paulius Jankunas' retirement game. No, it was the first time I met another guy named Donatas Urbonas, and it was a funny story because like a month ago, I received a call from my previous job, 15 Min. I left 15 Minutes LT like almost a year ago. And I received a call and they said that, oh, you have a delivery. I was like, what kind of delivery? I didn't buy or order anything, and especially not putting the address of my previous workplace. But they said that, oh, it's Donatas Urbonas on it, so you have to take it. And I was like, okay, just send me it to my home. And I got the box. I thought that it might be from some, let's say, basketball organization because sometimes that's what they do. Sometimes EuroLeague, especially when we were the official partners, they were just sending some, let's say, nice gifts for the whole office because we were the official partners. So I thought that it will be something like that. I'm unboxing that delivery, and it turns out it is a kitchen and extractor hood, gartraukis in Lithuanian. And I'm like, I don't need anything like that. What the hell is that? And I just called my administration again. I said that, hey, maybe you were ordering it to fix your extractor hood in your office. And they said, no, we don't even have it. And I was like, okay, I just put that box in the corner and I actually forgot about that. And one morning I'm getting a call and the guy on the other side of the phone call is saying, hey, my name is Donatas Urbonas and I'm calling you because I think that you received my delivery actually. And later I met that guy and it turns out that he worked in the same building in the same business center where we had the 15 Minutes headquarters. So he was on the second floor, I was on the fourth or fifth floor, I don't even remember now, but it was a funny story because probably the delivery guy thought that, oh, it's Donatas Urbonas from 15 Minutes, so I should deliver this stuff to 15 Minutes office.
But just to make it clear, you have no relations whatsoever with the coach Žydrūnas Urbonas that has been fired from Juventus club.
No relationship, right. Nothing at all.
Nice. My highlights of last week were definitely NBA related because there were some crazy NBA games with Giannis Antetokounmpo involved. The ending of the Brooklyn Nets game, also 76ers. I mean, I think with these two performances, Giannis should be at least included and considered in that MVP discussion where everyone's talking about whether it's Embiid or Jokic. It's a matter of taste for somebody. Again, last night, Jokic was amazing against the Lakers. Then Embiid delivers against the Cavaliers. So yeah, my last week was basically more about the NBA than about the EuroLeague. But at the same time, I was very happy to see Monaco clinching the playoffs, Mike James winning in Milan, and all the other stuff that happened.
And we will also have the MVP discussion.
Yeah.
That Kate Langford brought to us actually recently. But probably we have to give a shout out to Paulius Jankunas, the EuroLeague legend. He retired from the EuroLeague basketball as an all-time leader in total rebounds, defensive rebounds, games played and games started. And what a farewell game it was in Kaunas on Sunday.
Wow. I mean, Jankunas was out of the rotation in the second half because Zvezda was playing small and it would be difficult for Jankis to defend, to switch. But then, as Coach Zdov said, it was his assistant's idea, Tautvydas Sabonis' idea, but some are saying that it was actually Mantas Kalnietis' idea.
Actually, it was Mantas Kalnietis' idea. He was injured. He didn't play, and he sat on the corner next to Žalgiris bench and, let's say, injured players like Geoffrey Laverne, Yanis Strelnieks, or GM Paulius Motiejunas. And he was actually, irritated. He saw his friend Paulius Jankunas. Actually, Kalnietis brought Jankunas to the first basketball practice when Jankunas was 11.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, this is the last game of his good friend. And he spent all the second half on the bench until like 5 minutes to play in the end. And he decided to approach assistant coach Tautvydas Sabonis. And at least what people said, that quite aggressively requested to let Yankee play. Jankunas, he was cold all the second half. He came in and he made a very important three-pointer to tie the game with like 3 minutes left. And then he started the overtime with 6 consecutive points, scored 8 points in total in the overtime, scored actually 11 points from that moment when he showed up. And he was huge to win that game for Žalgiris, which was kind of a miracle because like 12 seconds until the end of the game, Žalgiris were down by 5 points.
Milaknis made a crazy three-pointer, and then shout out to Tyler Cavanaugh. He will always be remembered in the history of Žalgiris that he was the one in the last game for Paulius Jankunas who saved the game, sent it to overtime, and then in the overtime Žalgiris won. And you know what? Jankunas, when he got on the court with 5 minutes left, I think, in the fourth quarter, everyone's thinking like, we're probably going to lose this game. So now they're just giving these minutes to Yankee because of respect for him as a captain, as a legend. 18 years in the EuroLeague, or 19 exactly, years. Yeah.
18 in
he started
Žalgiris.
in 2003. Yeah. So then he starts doing all these plays. Everything from his bag of tricks. I mean, all these classic moves. You got the dirty plays in the post. Drawing fouls,
terrible calls.
annoying his opponents because of his elbows, fouling out players, Davidovac, Mitrovic, pick and pop freeze, fake handoff, drive to the left. My God, it was just vintage Paulius Jankunas in this one last game, one last dance. I know that the last few years of his career were kind of difficult. You could say 3 or 4 years. Ever since he signed the contract extension, when he was playing on a high, when Žalgiris was reaching the Final Four.
He made his second EuroLeague team.
Yes, they went to the Final Four. They obviously gave him the contract extension. Then he got injuries and he declined rapidly, which was kind of sad. But he was still the captain of the team, heart and soul of the team. And to see him in this one last game doing all these things, and basically without his appearance, probably they would have lost the game. And then you hear in the post-game interview him being very calm, very professional as you expect him to be. He's not the type of guy that wants to be in the center of attention. Yeah. He's just saying, I'm very happy for the win. At the same time, announcing that he's staying with Žalgiris organization after the season. He's going to work in the front office. But then he mentioned one more thing that, look, the season isn't over. We still have to win the Lithuanian League. So obviously, the very last game for Paulius Jankunas will be in the Lithuanian League finals. Once again, lifting the trophy as a captain. No offense to any Lietkabelis or Rytas fans. You don't stand a chance in the final series against Žalgiris. And actually, if you look at the numbers in the Lithuanian League, he's still getting 10 performance index rating in 15 minutes. Yeah, which means that's just my wild guess, wild prediction. Paulius Jankunas will finish his career by also winning the LKL Finals MVP.
No way.
Why not?
Why yes?
Why not?
I mean, I don't see him being so impactful in the final series.
It's LKL. It's not the EuroLeague.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he didn't look very well in the last games against Rytas.
Well, nobody looked well in that last game.
I mean, MVP of the Lithuanian competitions is like kind of, reserved by Edgaras Ulanovas. There's no way he's
but you don't need to do
giving that
much.
reservation to Paulius Jankunas.
You don't need to do that much to get it, and some people who are voting for the MVP will vote by sentiment and give it to Paulius Jankunas. This is just my wild prediction.
Any efficient in this series, there might be the case that they will decide to dedicate this final series MVP.
I think he has left in the tank for one last run, as he showed yesterday, and there will be plenty of motivation. You're not saving your body for anything else. You're just finishing your career with these final games, and this is just my wild prediction. Maybe it will turn out as many other predictions that I had. For example, predicting teams in the top 8. But speaking about MVPs.
Yeah, how wild it was the prediction of Kate Langford saying
not prediction,
that,
statement.
Yeah, it was a statement.
And he said there's no debate.
Yep. I mean, just read that Monaco is on the playoffs. That means the natural 05 is EuroLeague MVP. There's no debate. Barcelona is in the playoffs or top 4 without Viv or without Mirotic, and people don't understand that non-traditional powers don't succeed in Europe. Hat tip to MJ.
Well, some of his...
So the statement, Mike James is the MVP of the EuroLeague, in or out?
Out, man. Mike James himself admits that Mirotic deserves it this year. We know that the quarterfinals still impact the MVP voting. So let's imagine that Mike James takes his team to the Final Four and Monaco beats, Olympiacos or Milan without a home court advantage. Then you have more arguments for him. And if he performs in the series the way he did during the last month, by the way, he's the MVP of March.
Yeah. He was just announced.
So you could start talking, especially if Mirotic has a bad series once again, like last year, when Mirotic was also the MVP after the regular season in everybody's eyes, but then the quarterfinals changed the narrative and Vasa Micic became the MVP. So right now, I don't agree with Keith Langford that Mike James is the MVP. I think Mirotic is the MVP, but I do agree with some of his arguments about the traditional powers in the EuroLeague, that Monaco, they're in the EuroLeague for the first time. Mike James silenced many doubters and critics and haters by his performance this season. People were talking for the past few years that Mike James is destructive, that he's bad for the team chemistry. Everybody remembers also the season in Milan, which was not good. He won the Alfonso Ford Award, but the team was not winning. And then Ettore Messina came and he said, I don't need him on my team. So people are still...
he has that label.
Yeah, people are still thinking about him as some sort of a cancer in the locker room, which he's not. He's a leader of this Monaco team. The last game they played in Milan, he was struggling, but he was making good decisions, playing for the team. And what he's doing this season, amazingly, in my opinion, is driving to the paint and kicking the ball to the perimeter to his teammates. Sometimes he gets 10, 12, or even 13 assists in a game. So all this criticism on Mike James is unfair. But at the same time, I don't think he's the MVP of the season.
I mean, I don't know about the thing... how it is in the locker room, for example. Maybe some players might argue with you about him being, let's say, cancer or whatsoever, because we saw what happened with Zvezdan Mitrovic once he kind of left to the locker room. I think it was in the game against Efes. There were some arguments with Mitrovic when Mike James was benched and just didn't play. Later, Mitrovic was fired. But anyway, no matter what happened inside the locker room, on the court, he was providing. And for example, if there was the 2 MVP awards, for example, the MVP award for the second half of the season, for sure it goes to Mike James, because he, Coach Obradovic, whole Monaco team, they turned the season like in 180 degrees. Mike James was great. He was finally delivering in the crucial moments, winning some important games for Monaco. His numbers were amazing. But the first part of the season for him was tough. And for example, I understand Keith and his MVP case for Mike James. He has his own perception of who the MVP is. And that's the problem. That's the, let's say, beauty and the problem of the MVP award, because there's no measurement for that award. We have our own opinion what should be the MVP. And for me, the MVP is being very efficient and dominating on consistent basis. I think the consistency tells a lot about the perfection. And I cannot find anybody better than Nikola Mirotic and the way he was playing this year. His numbers are just amazing. I mean, he's averaging 16.8 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 20 performance index rating in
just look
23
at his shooting
minutes.
percentages.
His shooting percentages are career higher 67% 2-point shooting and 47% 3-point shooting. And
there are games where Šaras is basically saving him, playing limited minutes, and he still gets his numbers in 16 minutes. I remember a game in Berlin quite recently. He played only like 16 minutes, but he got all these numbers in 16 minutes.
And he got these numbers against big teams. For example, Real Madrid, 31 points, CSKA, 21, Olympiacos, 22, Zenit, 20, Milan, Fener, 18, Efes, 18. And his lowest scoring game was in Istanbul against Fenerbahce, where he scored 8 points, but he made the game winner.
Yeah.
So, if there was not Nikola Mirotic, maybe Mike James would be the best case for the MVP award.
Mike James was the MVP of last season's first part, before the conflict with Titudis. Now he's the MVP of the second part of the season.
So maybe let's combine it.
But, well, first of all, in my opinion, regarding the MVP, it should be a regular season award. The quarterfinal should not affect the voting, like it is in the NBA. It doesn't matter if you're out in the first round of the playoffs. The regular season is what matters. This is the regular season award. For the postseason, there's the finals MVP. That's it. And in the EuroLeague, it's the Final Four MVP, not only the finals. So I think it's a regular season award, and it's not really fair to judge by the quarterfinals. But then we can approach what Keith Langford said about Barca, that they would be in the top 8 with or without Mirotic. Maybe, yes, top 8, but they're the number 1 seed. They're not just top 8. And another thing, later on, the discussion escalated. I read the whole thread on Twitter.
It was a great thread. I mean, it's a pure joy to see Keith Langford, Tyrese Rice, Mike James, sometimes Jordan Theodore.
I think Delaney was also...
Delaney, I mean, that's the best Twitter thread you can
These
read.
are great guys. I love following them on Twitter. They look like really cool, chill personalities, and at the same time, amazing basketball players. But then Keith Langford said that, look, in the middle of the season, when they had injuries, they signed Dante Exum, former 5th draft pick, and they made him a role player. Fair enough. But his point was that Barca could replace Mirotic if he gets injured with another player. I'm really sorry. There's no one in the market that could actually replace Mirotic and provide the same numbers and do the same things.
Why we cannot
the only player right now that I see that could take the role of Mirotic in Barca and play to a similar level would be Sasha Vezenkov, former Barcelona player, but then he was very young and it didn't work out for him in Barca. So, no, I don't agree that they could easily just replace Mirotic if he gets injured. I think if Mirotic got hurt for 3 months, Barcelona, instead of the number 1 seed, would be 4th or 5th
and you
at best.
Cannot underestimate the fact that Barcelona played one third of the season without the main point guard, Nikolaitis. Then they didn't have their main scorer, Corey Higgins, for 2/3 of the season. I mean, these are very significant losses, even for the team like Barcelona. And we will all agree that Barcelona was the most consistent and most dominating team in the EuroLeague, in the whole competition, all season long. So they deserve some praise, and they deserve to have Nikola Mirotic as the MVP.
And another thing, okay, they signed Ante Exum and made him a role player, fair enough. Monaco, non-traditional European power, during this season signed Dwayne Bacon, a player that was averaging 9 or 10 points in the NBA last year.
Even more than Dante Exum.
And now he's one of their better offensive players in isolation. Sometimes he's unstoppable. So I get it at Monaco, they are the newcomers, but let's not pretend at the same time that this is a poor club that cannot afford good players. They signed some big names, not only Mike James before the season. They signed Donatas Motiejunas, they signed Will Thomas, they signed players with tons of EuroLeague experience playing at the highest level. I'm giving all the credit to Mike James. I respect him so much. I said on numerous occasions he's my favorite EuroLeague player, and he has been for years. I admire his skills so much. I just agree with some part of Keith Langford's arguments, but with some of them, I really don't agree. So then there were some interesting comments from Tyrese Rice, I believe.
He just said that at the end of the day, big-time awards ain't for us. Americans probably, unless we leave no doubt at all, and we really know that. Then people don't understand us, so they're gonna always disrespect or our value, but it always shows in time, and the real no. So it's really whatever.
Well, there is probably some truth to that. That Europeans prefer their legendary players, European players, rather than Americans.
Fun fact, the last American EuroLeague MVP was Anthony Parker in 2006.
That's long ago.
Yep.
There is a lot of sense to what Tyrese Rice is actually saying. I, for one, am the guy who appreciates Americans playing in Europe as much as I can. I think American players have a lot of skill, and without Americans, the EuroLeague would be boring. So I'm never the guy to put a European ahead of an American just because I prefer him more. You always have to try to look at different things, the way the team was performing, the numbers, the impact, and all that stuff. It's crazy to think that Anthony Parker was actually the last American MVP when was it? 2006. So for these 16 years, we had so many amazing American players, and we have them right now. So I get what Tyrese Rice is saying, and I respect Tyrese so much because he was the underdog finals MVP, Final Four MVP when he led that Maccabi team. So all these guys, Keith Langford, Tyrese Rice, they've done so much in European basketball. You have to respect their opinions.
You know, MVP debate is interesting. What would you also have in this MVP race? We kind of mentioned our, let's say, top 5 players of the EuroLeague, but it doesn't mean that we were talking about this specific season.
I have Vesely as my top 5 player, but he's far away from being the MVP this year. Who else I would have in the discussion? Vezenkov. Oli might finish second.
It's funny how much hate we received in comments, although we said that is the guy who has some material to make it to the NBA, actually. So probably it was even, let's say, better praise for Vezenkov than putting him in top 5, where we could all argue about his selection.
Micic, again, somewhere near, but I would put Mike James ahead of Vasa Micic. Actually, Monaco might even finish higher than Anadolu Efes. It's unlikely, but it might happen because they have points advantage against them. So I don't see any reason to put Vasa Micic ahead of Mike James at the moment.
Yeah, because they're so close. They're just one win away from Efes. And if we actually add all these games against Russian teams, Monaco would be even higher. And for what Mike did, of course, it's much harder job than what, for example, Vasa Micic and Shane Larkin did in Efes.
The very last game against the Russian team in the EuroLeague was Monaco Unix. How it ended?
Monaco won.
How they won?
I don't remember. It was so long time ago.
Who got the buzzer beater?
Okay. It was the first buzzer beater by Mike this year, actually.
Still, he won an important game for them.
Yeah.
Top 3 for me would be definitely Mirotic, Mike James, and Vezenkov.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot take anything from Milan because I cannot take Shawan Shields, who missed the 1/3 of the season. And other guys, they were very similar. I didn't see nobody from Madrid. I mean,
Yabusele, shout out to Yabusele. He was amazing this year. But no, I wouldn't see him in the MVP discussion just because Real Madrid started struggling ever since the Copa del Rey, and they don't look like themselves at the moment. So, nobody else. I mean, Maccabi getting to the playoffs finally is a big thing.
Yeah.
But they were very inconsistent during the season.
And it was more about, let's say, team effort.
Scotty Wilbekin is great, but not MVP type of
great. Not as great as these guys we mentioned, actually.
So, I think the list is quite short, actually.
Yeah, okay.
In the NBA, you have a lot more names you could put. Not only Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis. There are some other guys.
So we have some front runners. We will see how it will change during the playoffs. Because as you mentioned, as we remember, last year, Mirotic choked, and then Micic had the upper hand. who knows what kind of Mirotic version we will see, what kind of crazy things, either Micic or I don't know, the same with Mike James, what they will bring on the table. Although I thought that, this MVP race maybe is more or less clear, but what about the Coach of the Year award? I mean, we have so many interesting cases. For example, Šarūnas Jasikevičius handling this tough season for Barcelona, but keeping Barcelona on the top of everything. Then we have amazing job of Yorgos Bartzokas. Now we see Olympiacos as the second seeded team. They made the top 4 and they were consistent all season long. They were really great. Then we have Sasha Obradovic, who turned the Monaco season around and made the playoffs when they were probably as low as 12th, 13th seed, something like that. So, I mean...
And we have Trinchieri that made the playoffs for the second year in a row.
Yeah, and with all these...
injuries, COVID,
free COVID outbreaks, a lot of injuries, they are still struggling with having their players back. So, I mean, we have some strong cases for this award.
We do. And each one of them is unique.
Yeah.
And I would say, first of all, about Sasha Obradovic, I wouldn't vote for Coach of the Year for somebody who was not there for the full season.
Mm-hmm.
He saved their season, that's for sure. But I'm ruling him out. Then if I'm thinking between Šaras and Bartzokas, Barca winning the regular season is something, like I said, we're taking for granted. It happened last year. It happens now. They were the favorites. They
but
did it.
But you can't rule
they
all
delivered.
these circumstances they went through.
You cannot, which is why there's a strong case. But my vote goes to Bartzokas. As much as I criticize him in my podcast because of the rotations and underplaying Kostas Lukas, when you're taking a team that was not in the playoffs for a while, you're rebuilding it completely. Before the season, not so many people actually were predicting them the top 8, not even talking about the home court advantage or the second seed. And now you're taking this team so far. They are in the second position. They have 19 wins. They might even finish in the second. So my Coach of the Year in the regular season is definitely Bartzokas, but Coach of the Year is also affected by the quarterfinals. You still have to make it to the Final Four. If you don't...
You know what's the biggest problem? I think that with the MVP case, everything is clear. You remember Vasa Micic and his surprising... how surprised he was when he received this award before the Final Four. I mean, like a night before the Final Four, the first game of the semifinal. I think that EuroLeague Coach of the Year award is presented after the season, at least
after the regular season or
after the whole season. Yeah, for example, I see that FS head coach Ataman wins Coach of the Year, and it was on June 22nd, which makes this award very problematic. I mean,
so if we just give it to the champion, then
exactly that's
there's
not
no criteria.
Fair.
The champion gets the Coach of the Year, but if Olympiacos goes to the Final Four, my vote goes to Bartzokas, regardless of what will happen.
Yeah,
in
but
the
the
Final
problem
Four.
is that the title overshadows some spectacular performances by coaches, and I do not agree with it. You said that you would like to have this award after the regular season for the player.
Again, as in the NBA, it's a regular season award.
But at the same time, what I hate about the NBA, they award these players after the season. And when we see these MVPs suck, like Russell Westbrook, I mean, you kind of feel bad about that award. So I kind of like that playoff might make some difference. And it might change the MVP race, and there is some point at that actually, because you have to prove if you are the real MVP when it really matters.
But then I have some problems with that.
Okay, for example,
just imagine you play a full season of 82 games, and you are the MVP.
Okay. Yeah.
Then you get hurt in the playoffs, and you miss the playoffs, and your team loses. So what? You're not the MVP anymore?
You are the MVP, but just announce the MVP after the regular season. Not to make...
So we're talking about timing, but we're not talking about the concept.
In NBA case, timing is
it's
the problem.
It's a regular season award.
Yeah.
The timing, okay. The timing, you can have some debates about that. I'm just saying that for EuroLeague, it's not about the timing, it's about the actual voting, that these are kind of uncertain awards. They're not regular season awards. Then for the MVP, you count the quarterfinals, but the Final Four is different. Then you have the Final Four MVP as a separate award, Coach of the Year. Everything counts. So in this case, you're usually going to give it to the champion. They should sort this out. And I actually think that EuroLeague is not promoting these individual awards enough. It's not a big deal in Europe, actually, about all these awards. And it's good. Winning is the most important thing. But you need to give some importance to this. I'm not saying you have to make it like in the NBA where some of the players compare being the scoring champion of the regular season to winning a ring. For example, in EuroLeague, the Alfonso Ford Award winner is usually somebody from a losing team. Alexis Shved, Mike James in Milan. So scoring a lot does not mean that you're having a good season with your team.
So that's all about all these award races, let's say. It's going to be intriguing. Anyway, so we have our clear top 8, despite the fact that we will have another week and two for the rest of the regular season games, but we're sure that Barcelona, Olympiacos, Real Madrid, Armani, Milan, Efes, Maccabi, Monaco, Bayern will be in the playoffs. And for this episode, we decided to, let's say, make our own exit interviews for these teams who didn't make the playoffs. And we will pretend to be people who, make decisions or who would make decisions and who would start these exit interviews. We have 7 teams which didn't make the playoffs. We already discussed about Panathinaikos and Žalgiris pretty much in detail, what they should do, how they should rebuild for the future. So basically we have 5 clubs, Baskonia, ALBA Berlin, Zvezda, Fenerbahce, and ASVEL. So starting with Baskonia, you're in the room. Who you're inviting in that room? What kind of changes? From what kind of changes you're starting your summer?
Actually, a lot still depends on how they finish the Liga Endesa season. It's still very important for them. However, what we're seeing right now, still after the last game when they won, they beat Žalgiris without Wade Baldwin, that when everyone's healthy, when everyone's back, Spahia has a decent team, and if they were healthy from the very beginning, maybe they would be there where Maccabi is at the moment. Maybe, I don't know. So this shows that there's not that much to change. They don't need some complete full rebuild. In my opinion, the season is very long and very difficult when you're playing in EuroLeague and in the Spanish League. You need a deeper roster. I think you need to consider maybe investing more in your bench, in the role players. Of course, this probably means that you cannot afford a star player like Wade Baldwin, but I just think you need a deeper roster because this Baskonia team was really hurt by injuries. 1 or 2 players are down, and already they're losing. They're playing as a not even mediocre, but one of the worst teams in the EuroLeague, which happened in the first months. Then they changed the coach. So the only suggestion, in my opinion, would be to have a deeper roster for next season, to invest more in your role players. And if everything goes okay with the Spanish League, I think Neven Spahia should be considered. Yeah.
That's the thing. I agree. I'm still confused. I still don't know what to do with their future. But if we take only the EuroLeague, I like what they did. Probably they did best regarding the position and the situation they had. But I still need to wait for the outcome of the ACB championship to see how competitive they will be. Then I would make my decision about the head coach. I was actually the most confused about this team. Basically, what to do with Wade Baldwin, extended him or not, Neven Spahia, but your point about making the bench deeper, which was already a problem for them last year, and they looked tired from like halfway of the season. So that would be a huge improvement. Of course, it all goes to the financial situation of the club. But if there is any way, surviving this COVID era, having all these fans back, getting more money from ticketing, if there's any way to make this team deeper, they would benefit from that.
I think they have a really nice core with guys like Costello, Fontecchio, Giedraitis, Wade Baldwin played really good for the past 2 months. But then again, if you're making your roster deeper, I don't know if Wade Baldwin is still in the picture. Maybe you need a cheaper point guard. But then, as I said, to have a more balanced roster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not criticism for Wade Baldwin. It's just more about how you're building the team and where you're investing your money, because the resources are limited. It's not like Baskonia is a very low budget team, but they're not one of these richest clubs.
Mm.
So yeah, that's probably the only thing about them.
With ALBA Berlin, everything is so easy. My main job is I would come to that exit interview with Israel Gonzalez with the new multi-year contract in my hands, because he's on his expiring deal with ALBA. He did an amazing job. Of course, they were aware, to see if Israel Gonzalez can continue what Aito did, and he proved very well that, he made the best of this ALBA roster this season, competing for the playoffs. I don't even remember that when Aito was on the bench of ALBA Berlin.
But as we heard, like last year, Israel Gonzalez was already an associate head coach.
Yeah. He was already prepared for that next step, and they were waiting what Aito will do. So he took over the team. He kept that, let's say, continuity of the philosophy of ALBA Berlin, and they did an amazing job. We saw a lot of players progressing during the season. For example, Jalen Smith he was underperforming in the first half of the season. I remember I wanted him in Žalgiris Kaunas, and when I saw him in ALBA, the way he played in the first half of the season, I was like, okay, I'm kind of glad that guy didn't join Žalgiris. But then he really improved, and he was a very important part of this ALBA late playoff push. So a lot of players are still on contracts. They might make some small roster adjustments, probably bringing Niels Giffey back, for example, to make their roster deeper. But other than that, I would continue with Israel Gonzalez for sure, and everything is good in Berlin, I think.
There's not much to say, really. It was a good season for ALBA. You have to continue going through that path. I don't know which players will stay. I don't know if they will manage to keep, Mo Delor, for example. He played his career season.
He might be on an expiring contract.
So his market value increased, and he might get some offers. We know that ALBA Berlin is not the club that is willing to spend huge money on one player. Luke Sigma is the backbone of this team, and he seems very loyal to ALBA Berlin. I expect to see them with more or less similar roster next season. But ALBA Berlin is the club that finds some gems. All the time they find interesting players, hungry players. Fontecchio, example from last season. Giedraitis, the season before. They had Grigonis. They still have Marcus Eriksson. Unfortunately, he's getting injured a lot. But when he's playing, he's one of the best shooters in the EuroLeague. So they just have to continue with this culture. For example, they gambled with a guy like Chris Kumaje. Not every 223 centimeter guy finds his place in the EuroLeague. It's difficult. But we saw in some games that he's capable of having an impact. Similarly to Tavares, to Mustafa Yusuf Afal. That's, again, a nice decision to try with one of these super big centers. He was not that expensive when they signed him. And I'm thinking about Taco Fall in the EuroLeague. Maybe.
I think we had a question about Taco Fall, no?
Maybe.
Somebody asked if he could play in
I don't see a
EuroLeague.
place for him in the NBA.
Yeah, of course.
And in Europe, who knows? He's 229, I think.
Something like that.
He might be even more scary than Tavares. I don't know. Maybe you need $400K or $500,000 to sign him. But just a tendency that every team now is looking for one player like this, to have one big center that can change games.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for it. Olympiacos As
They found
well,
their success, with all these tall guys.
Real Madrid, ALBA Berlin, Panathinaikos, most of the teams have at least one really big center. So yeah, but to sum up, ALBA Berlin, great season in the EuroLeague. Still, there's a lot to come in the German Bundesliga. The rivalry with Bayern Munich fighting for the title, and the other clubs are also competitive. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah, my quick recommendation, Yorgos Kyriakidis, our colleague from BasketNews.com, had an interview with Israel Gonzalez like 2 weeks ago. The Bubble of Happiness, Israel Gonzalez opens up on ALBA Berlin's unique case. So shout out to Yorgos and his job, and I recommend to read this interview to get to know both Israel Gonzalez and ALBA Berlin better. So the next team in the standings, we have Crvena Zvezda Belgrade. And their case is interesting because they don't have a guaranteed spot in the EuroLeague for the next season. They might earn it through ALBA Liga if they will become champions. And it's hard to make any exit interview when you don't know in which tournament you will play. And that's the case when it takes, Nikola Kalinic and his future in the club. For sure, he's the cornerstone of that club. Zvezda would love to keep him in the team, and I think that Nikola Kalinic really delivered this season as the leader of this group. They were very competitive. They almost made the playoffs. They just fall apart, and these last away games, either it was ALBA Berlin, even Žalgiris, Kaunas, Bayern Munich, it was not competitive team at all, which we saw. So it's tough case with Zvezda.
No, but let's just focus like it's an exit interview and you're preparing this team for next season's EuroLeague. We don't know what's going to happen, but let's pretend. So first of all, I don't think it was a bad season for them. The feeling right now is disappointment because after winning 2 games at home against Real Madrid and Maccabi, the playoff dream was real. The playoff chase was real. And I was one of the people that actually predicted them the top 8. But again, the inability to win games on the road, inability to perform on the road cost them. I think they got 9 wins at home this season, and only 2 wins away. Obviously, it's insufficient.
I think there were more wins, but these wins are better against Russian clubs.
So I'm just focusing on the results that actually counted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's insufficient to only win at home. You need to take some road games if you want to be in the top 8. The way they finished the regular season was obviously a disappointment, but the season as a whole was at least decent.
Yeah.
They were very competitive at home. Everybody had problems playing with them. However, it is modern basketball, and they were the worst three-point shooting team in the league. And you need to address this when you're building your roster for next season. I think you need more shooters. It's good to have tall players, physical players to play with the lineup where you have like 4 forwards that can switch everything, like Davidovac, Kalinic, there's Dobric at the second position and Mitrovic at fifth. Sometimes even Davidovac moves to the 5th position. It's good. It's a great idea for defense, but you need shooters. You need people to spread the floor. Yesterday, they were hitting shots in the second half, but these were players that usually other teams risk on them, like Markovic, Aaron White. They're not consistent shooters. So Crvena Zvezda was the worst three-point shooting team in the EuroLeague. If you want to improve, this is the area for improvement in my eyes. But again, we don't know if they will be in the EuroLeague or not next season.
Yeah, I think that they should keep a lot of players of this roster because, for example, Austin Hollins, he really improved throughout the season. He started delivering probably since the Serbian Cup final. He was very, very crucial in that game against Partizan. And the last few weeks before he got injured, he was really important for that team. They were unlucky with Aaron White and his injury before the season because, it put him out of the rhythm, and later on it was not so easy for him to adjust in this team. And from the day one, they were not clear with the center position. You remember they had to sign Mike Zirbes. They were not so good with just Ognan Kuzmic alone at this position. It seemed like they were always looking for a center. I even heard that Matthias Lezort was really close to signing with them before the deadline of EuroLeague signings. So they should be more clear just before the season with one of the key positions. And
a more mobile center, you mean?
Probably, yeah. Of course, not probably.
But obviously, in this case, Mitrovic playing the center position,
I want some higher level center.
Save them, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah, you're starting games with Kuzmic, but then you need a more mobile center. Do you keep Nate Walters as your main point guard?
I think he was decent. I think he was good. I cannot expect a lot.
As a playmaker,
better.
He was good. He has a very nice floater.
He was consistent. Yeah, he was important when they won the Serbian Cup as well. So
another player that's not that consistent shooting frees.
Yeah.
This is the only problem, basically, in my eyes. I know you will not have a perfect team with limited budget, but it is possible to have a better shooting team than it was this year. But again, they ended with 11 wins, and only the inability to win on the road cost them the playoffs. They were really close. 2 wins against the German clubs, and they are in. But
of course, in let's say normal circumstances, they were not racing for the playoffs probably. But now we have to kind of adjust to this new reality.
These Russian clubs, and I really hope we're ruling out these clubs for good, not only for this season.
Yeah.
But under these circumstances, really, the top 8 was very, 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 very close. They just needed to win against the German teams.
Just needed to win some away games. That's it.
Just the 2 wins against the German teams.
Yeah.
And then maybe finishing against Žalgiris with a win, and you're in.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the next case, I think, is the most interesting. Fenerbahce. Because, okay, now they still have 3 games to play.
Oh my God, but
they have 9 wins.
Can you imagine the mentality going into these games? The motivation for the players?
That Maccabi game on April 13th.
Yeah.
Ooh, they will play. Maybe they will play Ergi Tirpansi, Ekrem Sansakli, Ismail Karabilen. Probably, because what's the purpose?
They were dead even in the last 2 games. I cannot imagine how will they perform in these upcoming 3 games. Oh.
But that's very difficult situation, because it's hard. For example, a lot of people are criticizing Sasha Djordjevic for not making the playoffs. I think, generally speaking, for this Fenerbahce team, with that kind of budget, with all these players, not making the playoffs is kind of disaster. I mean, that's a huge failure for them. But at the same time, they were in a very bad situation because of these Russian clubs. They got 4 wins taken away from them. And if we count these wins, they're still in the playoff mix. I mean, from 8th to 11th seed.
But it seemed like they gave up after this decision. I actually had faith that they can still make a run.
Yeah, we both believe that they will make the playoffs, actually.
Monaco was also hurt by the decision. What they did.
They
kicked asses.
Against best teams like Efes, Olympiacos.
They only lost against Barca. They beat everybody else. Efes, Oli, Baskonia, Milan away. And Fenerbahce, it seemed like they gave up already after the decision was made in the EuroLeague's front office. There was no more spirit, nothing. Even though the players are there. They played, for example, in Barcelona without the Colo, but Vesely was there, Guduric was there, and they were not competitive at all. So it was really disappointing to see, and it's really depressing to see that they still have 3 more games left. But the question is, what should they do for the next season?
Yeah. It all starts with the GM, Mauricio Gherardini. There are a lot of talks that he might leave the club. So we're not even sure who will start that exit interview. Then we have Sasha Djordjevic. And as I've understood, he had 3-year contract, but it's not guaranteed for the next 2 seasons. And I think that a lot of now depends on how he will finish the Turkish championship, because at least what I've heard, there might be an option that if he wins the Turkish championship, it it locks. I mean, his contract locks for the next year, guaranteed. Probably the same was with the EuroLeague playoffs or the Final Four. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I'm hearing from my sources. But anyway, we have uncertain situation with the head coach. We have a lot of uncertainties with the main players, Nikola, Vesely. They're on an expiring deal. So we might face the huge rebuild, and we're not even sure who will start it, who will make it. Even if Keradini stays, what you would do with Sasha Djordjevic, for example, because, okay, the team gave up. They didn't make the playoffs, but at the same time, this was not the team of Sasha Djordjevic. I mean, he joined the club when all the players were signed. So it's very hard to point fingers and to find one problem, one guy who you should blame for what happened.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but you heard my take in our Q&A session. In my picture, for Fenerbahce, there's a certain coach Tudis, and rebuilding the roster, I'm doing everything that it takes to keep Jan Vesely. But then, I don't like the idea of Vesely playing the fourth position. I don't like these big lineups with Booker sometimes taking the fourth position. They have so many bigs. Jahai Floyd, Devin Booker, Duverioglu was there. Then Vesely is playing as a power forward. You still have
that's
Akila
why they
Polonara.
struggled offensively.
In my rebuild, Vesely is a clear number 5. He's my main center. And then I'm building the team, replacing some of the players that didn't deliver, like Mariel Sheak, for example. They need some shooters, but you should keep Marko Guduric, for example.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know about Dekolo, to be honest. He's great.
I need some fresh legs in this core.
Yes,
because if you already have Vesely and you want to extend the Colo,
that's what I mean.
I mean, it's
Pierre Henry's season was also with a lot of up and downs. I don't know his contract situation.
It's 1+1, but I would keep Henry because he had all these injury problems. He didn't have healthy teammates all season long. So I would give him another shot.
But I would start with Coach Itudis, having conversations with him by hiring Coach Itudis and then allowing him to have his say. Does he want Pierre Henry? Does he want
of course.
this player and that player? And we could build a team together with a very strong head coach. I think Itudis has proven that he can bring these elite teams success. Everything depends on the budget. I don't know if Fenerbahce will have a lower budget next season. I don't know their economics, but if they're capable of keeping Jan Vesely, they should invest money and keep Jan Vesely.
I would keep him only on a smart contract, I would say, because he was one of the best paid players in the EuroLeague, something close to be around 2.5 million euros. I think it's just too much for the guy who missed almost the all second half of the season, and then they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, we can remember that 2 or 3 years ago he couldn't play in the Final Four, for example. So it's a big luxury to have player with the injury history like that. Although I agree, I would see him as your main center, but just on a smart contract. But it won't be easy because there are all these talks about some other potential destinations, teams like Barcelona or Milan, for example, who could accommodate him in these teams. So it
players like that are really difficult to replace. But then again, if you lose one of the best centers, you rebuild your team in a different way. You cannot sign a player that is as good as Jan Vesely, but
unless it's Brandon Davis, for example.
But you might.
That's a good replacement.
Brandon Davis would be a good replacement, but you might be stronger in other positions. Like getting a better small forward.
You need great scorer next to Pierre Henry, and we're talking about top level players. I like Guduric as my, let's say, small forward. I would love to see that lineup with Henry, Guduric, and some other guys.
Stays. Daishon Pierre, I would even keep Daishon Pierre. I can play Guduric as a shooting guard, Pierre as a small forward. These guys can switch. These guys are staying. I am actually also keeping Akila Polonara. He's a good option. But my idea is to play with more mobile bigs. These big lineups, they don't really work as they did maybe 15 or 20 years ago. When I see a lineup with Jahai Floyd and Devin Booker, I cannot imagine any good spacing on offense with this lineup.
Okay, so a lot of decisions to be made from Fener, and I agree with you. If there's a coach such an elite coach like Itudis or Xavi Pascal on the markets, I would go for it. If not, probably I would give another chance for Sasha Djordjevic
to make some moves,
to work in normal circumstances.
To make some moves in the summer and
to make his own team.
Sign some players. It's not a bad idea. I don't know if the fans are against it or not. I don't think Sasha Djordjevic won the hearts of the Fenerbahce fans.
They were booing him at first, then they kind of fall in love with him because what he did with this team without Vesely and Nikola. But, all these fans, they're always so emotional about everything. So they're going, up and down all the time with their love. Villeurbanne, as well Villeurbanne, the last team, we will have the exit interview.
It's a very easy one.
Tell me.
It's a very easy exit interview. More minutes next season to Victor Wembanyama.
And building the team around him. Let's say.
Your priority is the development of this young player. So you're doing everything that he feels comfortable and he is in the best position. You will be replacing Elio Kobo. Let's be real. I cannot imagine Elio Kobo staying in Asphalt. They don't have the money.
The same.
They don't have the money. So you will need to sign some players, American players. I like that they are trying to have experienced veterans alongside these youngsters.
David Light, James
Dio, the French guys that beat the Lithuanian team in the European final 2013. You need experience. Experienced players help the younger players to grow. So this Asphalt team is kind of interesting because they're not so focused on winning, finishing higher in the standings, 10th, 11th, or 12th. They measure their success by the development of the young potential NBA draft picks. And Victor Wembanyama is the priority, and next season is very important for him. This is what Asphalt is focusing on. So my exit interview is just simple. Just like TG Parker is the right man to lead this project. It's very obvious. Wembanyama needs to play more minutes next season. We want to see him, how he develops, and just try and sign some players to replace Jones and Okobo. There's a very small possibility that you will get adequate replacements for Chris Jones and Elio Okobo with the money that you have. But still, you will have to sign somebody.
Yeah, I agree. My exit interview would be the same. I have TG Parker, Tony Parker, Wembanyama. We're just discussing what kind of guards you would like to have, what kind of team we're building around you to make you feel good, to use all your strengths and trying to make this team as competitive as possible. Let's say just to make any push to be competitive or to be around the playoff race. Let's say that's the maximum what you can expect from Asphalt. They were doing a great job in the first half of the season. Then they decreased. They had a lot of injury problems. So Kobo got injured. He got out of his rhythm. He was scouted, let's say. So it was not very successful second part of the season for them. But you cannot ask much from this club. So going to the end, we have these 8 teams. We still have some games. For example, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of motivation Bayern Munich will have, playing 3 games in 5 days, all 3 games on the road against Fenerbahce, FS, and Real Madrid.
I think there's plenty of motivation. I mean, they've clinched the playoffs, but they obviously don't want to face Barca. So
it will be tough.
But there's still a chance for you to at least finish 7th. So these 3 games are still important, even though you're in the playoffs. Everybody understands that Barcelona is the worst opponent you can get in a best-of-5 series right now. Because Real Madrid, they look vulnerable. Milan, they also have some issues. Olympiacos, they seem okay, but they're still more playable than Barcelona, in my opinion.
Yeah, the best motivation for this Bayern Munich team is just to get some game rhythm, to use these games as practices, because they didn't have any practices.
Get some players back in shape.
Exactly, just to match fit, let's say. Because why Andrea Trinchieri was so mad when Dora Pantelli asked him this question about unexpected loss against Panathinaikos? He was mad because he didn't have any 5-on-5 practice before that game. He just got some players after, being eligible just to play game after going through medicals after COVID. I mean, it was a hell of a stretch for this Bayern Munich club, and it was really, really another tough challenge for them. So That's why he was pissed. I mean, for some reason now, after what they did last year, we all think that it's a top 8 lock. But with the roster, with the budget they have, with all these problems they have, I mean, it's kind of miracle that we have them in the top 8. So yeah, Andrea was pretty pissed.
The idea to have these live interviews with the losing team's coach
and
basically puts you in a difficult spot when Bayern Munich loses games, because you never know what you're going to get from Trinchieri. You have to be very careful about the questions.
Bayern they were very competitive with Barcelona this year. They lost both games, but they lost by 8 in Munich and then only by 5 in Barcelona. Then I'm checking Real Madrid, for example. They lost by 4 and they will still play them. And for the Olympiacos, they lost by 10 and they lost by 23. Okay, so anyway, where I'm going to, what would you love to see the most for the playoff matchups? I mean, to see some good drama, but at the same time, good competitive playoff series.
Good competitive playoff series, you say? Well, any series with Anadolu Efes involved will be competitive.
Yeah.
I would like to see Monaco face Madrid. I would like to see Bayern Munich face Milan because of last year's series, which was crazy. And I want to see something again, Messina against Trinchieri. I would like to see Efes going against Olympiacos. And Maccabi against Barca, because I don't believe that Maccabi can beat any of these top 4 teams. So either way, we will have one series, probably a sweep. So this is my
that's why
best idea.
That's why I want Maccabi against Armani, because I heard that James Nunnally talked some trash during that game.
Okay.
They won.
Well, about Maccabi, we didn't say anything in this podcast, but
and we were super wrong about them. We kind of ruled them out for granted.
We were, yeah.
And they deserve credit.
At home, they beat Milan, they beat Real Madrid. The comeback against Madrid was amazing. But, I'm not really sure that Avi Evan is already prepared to face these mastermind coaches in a best-of-5 series. I saw, for example, Maccabi's game in Panathinaikos. It was the one that clinched the playoffs. It looked like G League basketball, honestly. There's enough talent in this Maccabi team. The way they play is still
they're on a good momentum.
It's a little chaotic, but they are on a good momentum. They have some players that I like. I love Derek Williams. I love Scotty Wilbekin, James Nunnally, another player that is performing very well this season. They have good centers. They're not a bad team, but when you're thinking about the playoffs, you're also thinking about the coaches. And I'm still doubting, is Avi Evan the man? Is he the head coach for Maccabi? Maybe he's dealing good with the locker room, with the players, but in a series, you need tactical adjustments. You need to react quickly. A lot of things. For example, last year we saw a series with Šaras and Chavi Pascual. It was like a chess game. I don't think Avi Evan is capable of playing chess with Šaras, Barsokas, Lasso, and Messina.
But they're capable of doing big things just because they're on a very good stretch. They're one of 2 teams, just like Monaco, they won 4 games in a row. That's the biggest winning streak. And for example, neither Milan or Real Madrid, they're not in a very good momentum. So I think that that's their only hope, Just
but I just don't see them winning against any of these top 4 teams. I mean,
me too.
Against some of them, they might not be swept. They might have some good performances at home.
They already exceeded my expectations. So they're already very good.
My idea of pairing these teams was that the underdog might win. And for example, Monaco facing Real Madrid, in Madrid's shape, the way they are right now, I would bet on Monaco.
Okay.
So this is why I want to see it.
And that's why I only pair Maccabi with Armani, just because of these off-the-court dramas.
Last year we had 3 Game 5s, but all the favorites won them. Efes won, Barca won, Milan won. I want to see an upset this season in the playoffs. I want to see as many Game 5s as possible. And I actually want to see them. I don't want them to be on the same time the way it was last year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Monaco is the team which probably has the highest ceiling to make that upset to any of these teams. Even Barcelona. I was looking for a matchup for Barca, and I thought that if anybody can not match them, but just compete with them, I think it's just Monaco, because you kind of cannot predict their ceiling against them. But when you have Real Madrid, and it's kind of very likely that, for example, Real might finish second, and then they might face Monaco, who are seventh. So I would love to see this series, because it would be intriguing. Even Lasso said that with the way they play right now, they would lose to anybody in the playoffs. So, and they also had very intriguing regular season games, especially that in Monaco.
Double overtime.
Double overtime. The game in Madrid was also tough. So that's a...
And of course, we agree that Anadolu Efes winning a series without the home court advantage is not an upset. They're the EuroLeague champions. It's not an upset if they beat Armani. Without the home court advantage.
No, of course.
You cannot count that as an upset.
But I believe that Efes and Olympiacos would make great playoff series. Good quality basketball. We remember the last game in Piraeus, which was very competitive. Another overtime game. And I mean, okay, Efes, they are still inconsistent, but they improved.
And Micic injury is not very serious. He should be good for the
I hope
first
so.
game
I'm
of
not
the
so
playoffs.
sure about that. That's a good question. But I hope so. He should be ready.
They announced that he was out for 2 weeks, something like that.
I don't remember, really.
Yeah, and they barely won against Alba without Vasa Micic. They needed Shane Larkin to put in amazing numbers in the second half to win that game. But anyways, Anadolu Efes, if everyone's healthy, they can be another fifth seed that wins the EuroLeague, as it was with Fenerbahce and Real Madrid in the recent years.
Yeah, and the reason why I have Bayern Barcelona is that because Trinchieri kind of reminds me of Xavi Pascal. He's kind of the mastermind from the same shelf, you know? And I believe that he might make some surprises, some interesting moves to limit Nikola Mirotic, and then we would see how Barcelona will handle it. The problem is that, Zenit, they had momentum last year. Bayern, as we already discussed, their situation is completely opposite. And I hope that in 2 weeks they will be better prepared for the playoff run. It's tough to expect anything from them. They're also overachievers. And even if they take at least one win in playoff series against Barcelona, it's already a big achievement. But I like Trinchieri and his tactical potential. I like Bayern team, what they went through, what kind of core they have. I like their roster. So probably it wouldn't be very intriguing, but at least there's some potential to make some interesting things.
Well, anyway, we're speculating a lot.
Yeah.
Next week we will meet and we will know.
Yeah, we will know, unless Maccabi situation.
Right,
yeah.
right. I mean, with all these postponements, I get lost in the schedule, honestly. And it was so weird having a EuroLeague game on Sunday. I'm used to having my Sunday routine like this. I wake up quite late because
What is
I
quite
go
late
to
for
sleep,
you?
To 12 or 1 p.m.
Okay.
I watch the game that's on television at that moment. I mean, football game. It's usually like Italian Serie A. Then I eat. It's breakfast for me, although for normal people it's dinner. Then I go to work because I have Premier League on a 4 p.m. time slot. After that, I have one more game. It's either the Premier League or the Liga Endesa. And then I'm staying in the office because on 10:30, it's always NBA. Like last night, it was Denver Nuggets against the LA Lakers. But this time, my routine was so different because I had a EuroLeague game.
You cannot complain.
It felt weird. I'm not
That
complaining.
was a hell of a game.
I am not complaining. I'm just saying it felt weird.
Yeah.
Because it's EuroLeague on Sunday. But it was a great game. We didn't go to the arena, though. I was working from the studio because after that, I had the NBA game, as I said. So in the arena, it was better, but okay.
I just hope we won't have any postponements or any other COVID outbreaks
During the playoffs.
ruined the playoffs for Fenerbahce, for example, last year. So
that would be
that's another
terrible.
game changer, which could add some, intrigue to this series, but we are not wishing anything like that to anybody. But yeah, you were right. We will meet again 1 week later. We will probably have more likely playoff picture, and of course we will discuss more in detail about all these top 8 teams and potential playoff matchups. So that's all this time. Thank you, Rytis. Thank you all, guys, for watching us.